Behind every brand, every movement, every leader, every transformation, there's a story. And intertwined in these stories is a message. And this podcast is for you, the next gen leader, coach, entrepreneur, and influencer. My name is Travis Brady, and I'm a branding mentor and sales story strategist. I hope you see me more of a guide than a host as I share the stories behind the brands, so you can take these stories, experiences, principles, and teachings and use them to share your story with the world. What's up, next gen leader? Welcome to the story behind the brand. I hope you're ready to rock today. No pun intended, because we got Erik Rock here. He's been coaching in the coaching game for the last 20 years, branding, started in retail, now in land development. He's in amazing shape too, played baseball. We could always vibe on that. So first time I was conversating with him, he's talking about his grandma, got me feeling all the emotions and getting me to tear up as well, because I have just so much love for my grandma Brady. She's on the tail end of her experience with this life. And so I'm super excited to have you here today. He's also going to be a part of Brand X, which I'm super pumped about. And he has an incredible story. So, hey, dude, thanks for jumping on here today.
I appreciate it, man. And yeah, it was the first time we did talk. I'm just, that story about your grandma and my grandma, I'd never heard anything like that. It was kind of such a powerful connection. We both interviewed our grandparents, for the listeners out there, which I think was one of these key moments that changed my life.
Yeah, I did it with my grandpa years ago before he died. I'm glad that I did. Yeah, my grandma, last year, I don't know how long it's going to be, and just thought I would really want to reflect back on her experiences and everything. And so I just set up the camera and had just like a 30-minute conversation with him. So yeah, I would tell anyone, that's absolutely do that. You will later regret not asking those questions or having those conversations. I don't know what your experience was like with all that.
Well, my mentor is Ed Milet, and one of his pieces of advice was to interview my father. And I've yet to do that. I plan on doing it, but I decided last summer to do it with my grandma. We got her up to Coeur d'Alene, where I live here in Idaho. And she hadn't been on a plane, I think, in like 30 years or something like that. So this was like a big event, and she didn't know I was going to interview her. I didn't position it like that at all. And her temperament, she probably wouldn't have liked it. But I naturally sort of laid it on her. We got her out on the deck. It's this beautiful summer day, right on the water. And I remember just her looking around saying, "Oh, honey, this is beautiful." So I just started interviewing her. I just started asking her questions that normally I just never would have thought to ask, like really deep questions about her father, her growing up as a child, her first experience with love, her first kiss. And what I quickly realized is I barely know her. And how crazy. I love my grandma. She's been in my life my entire life. And I think grandkids don't think to get to that level of depth. Everything's more surface level. Hi, grandma. Bye, grandma. I love you, grandma. Cookies. Yep. And so it really showed me a side of her. And what I realized really quickly is this is a woman that's been through a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of hell. And I didn't know her childhood story, but she was tortured as a child. Like literally her alcoholic father used to burn cigarettes out on her as punishment. And I don't know how you could hurt a little girl, but that's my grandma. And, to see all these questions sort of like land with her in just these powerful ways, and how this stuff was kind of reflected back on me, it not only opened my eyes, but it taught me so much about what it's going to look like when I'm 83 years old. I got such a deep feel of her regret, the emotional connection that she felt towards never living a life of courage, always sort of being a slave to other people, sort of trapped. And there was one thing she said, and I'll just never forget it. But I asked her, I said, "Grammy, do you feel like you've ever lived your dreams?" And I wish I would not have asked that question. Because when I did, her whole face changed, and that was the one I wish I could have pulled back. And she said, "Erik, I could have been somebody. I really could have been somebody." And her eyes were just welling up with tears, started pouring down her face. Her makeup was all over, and she was crying so bad. And it was that powerful reflection. I think a few things happened to me right there. I realized when you're 83, there's still a little girl or a little boy that's still thriving inside you. It's teeming inside you. I almost thought when I get old, like that little boy might be gone, the one that's like in there still. But
Hmm.
no, hold on to it till the very end. And I don't know if that made me feel better or worse, but just considering how fast it must have gone for her. And now
Yeah.
she's 83, and it's in her mind it's too late. But I also realized that that at 83 years old, you're still reliving the emotions of those child, good or bad, and
Hmm.
they're always sort of with you. So whether you can leverage that in a direction that sort of gets you closer to the things you say you want out of life, or whether it's the thing that holds you back, that's really a decision. But I argue most people in life probably don't leverage all that pain the right direction.
Yeah. Amen. Amen to that. Have you ever heard of the five dying regrets of old people?
Yeah, I have. That was like written by like a hospice nurse, I think, or maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wish they would have maintained friendships better. They wish they would have gone after their dreams. What was the other ones? I can't remember. I just remember those ones the
Uh,
most.
they're good, and they're
Family,
simpler.
spend more time with family.
Yeah, they're simpler than you think. We'll probably pull them up real quick. Five regrets of the dying, but
Yeah, as you're pulling that up, I want to talk about the question I asked my grandma. So, my grandpa started a business back in 1969 called. Well, he didn't start it. He bought a body shop called Randall's Body Shop, and we always told him, "Grandpa, how come you didn't change the name and rebrand it to Brady's Body Shop? That kind of has a ring to it." And he's like, "But Randall's Body Shop already had a reputation that was sending business this way, and so we didn't want to ruin the reputation. And someone built that with hopes and dreams, and so we wanted to keep that dream alive, which I thought was really cool. But family business and family business, I don't care who you are. I've heard a lot of stories. There's drama with them, and our family drama was. When I was 9 years old, I woke up and my dad informed me that my uncle had taken his life the night before. And he was by far my favorite uncle, would have given you the shirt off his back just to see you smile. And I asked my grandma, I was like, with running the business all the years, because she was very much in it. She's in it with my grandpa. And I asked her, I was like, Grandma, was it worth it to you all these years? And I was expecting her to say no. I was expecting her to say, no, it wasn't worth it. I lost my son, all these things. And she said, with everything that happened, you know, it was worth it. And I was like, wow, that's a lot to say that after, losing a kid, you know what I mean? So,
Amen.
so a different, like I saying, different conversation. I just put up the phone and said, can I film this? Is how I essentially approached that conversation.
I think there's probably a deeper meaning for a listener out there that's hearing this, and that is this idea that we move so fast in life, and this new younger generation, the one that's below us, part of the reason I do this shit now is because I fear for what's coming for that generation. And so for, again, like my mentor, I wasn't doing this when I met him, and he's the one that really challenged me to step in the light. One of the things he told me is he's like, listen, brother, there's a lot of children suffering and it ain't good right now. And, you should feel obligated to get out in the light, step into the light, and help somebody. Because if not, you're selfish. And, because I've been winning for so many years behind the scenes, leveraging all kinds of like unique things to get me to win, that are now part of my bigger story. And there are a lot of gifts that I can give away to help someone get out of their own way, because I sort of naturally stumbled upon this. But when I started stepping out in the light, like I just started understanding things and really slowly connecting to purpose. But as I did that, the depth of me got so much deeper, and I actually really learned to slow down time quite a bit. And this is where I started doing stuff like really considering like my grandma's story in ways that I just never even would have thought of, because I moved so fast and I was so hungry to win and grind. But all this work I've been doing these last 3 years was really came off of my other grandma passing away. That's what's interesting, is my other grandma died, who I
Yeah.
was incredibly close with, and her death screwed me up in ways that it's hard to explain. I literally like had everything in the world, and I'd go to bed at night like obsessing over my own death. For a few years, this happened after my grandma died. It was the most bizarre thing. And so all the evolution of my story sort of guided me to this unique place where now everything has deep meaning. And I put a lot of powerful stories behind anything that I do. And that connection with my grandma that's still alive, it's, I think the bigger point behind this whole thing is especially for young people, is this is the stuff that matters most in life. This is the stuff I'll hang on to. This stuff has more intrinsic value to me than money and all these other things that we think we want. And to think that people have the power, even if they don't necessarily have what they want out of life, You have the power to sort of create real meaning and happiness right away. You can create real value out of thin air. And these are the types of things that I think go right past people's heads, especially kids. And I get it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is the type of shit now that I can rub off on someone that's younger than me. If I can mentor a kid that's younger than me or have some influence, they won't expect me to talk about this stuff. And this is the shit I hammer. And what it does starts giving a young man depth. Mm-hmm. I can give a young person a lot of strength and a lot of depth and a lot of sort of like unfuckableness through this idea of like really being able to be in the room and read the room, identify what matters, go deep, fast, get to places that matter. And naturally, this gift is how you can honestly make a lot of money. Your ability to sort of always bring value to every place you go. You're not surface level with anybody or anything. It almost is intense in a way that could be off-putting to people. But what I will tell you is that it has given me so many gifts. It has brought me some of the best relationships a human could ever have. It has brought me opportunities that I can't even explain. And I think the heaviness of my soul from my own painful past is what allowed me, and all through entrepreneurship, to naturally sort of tap into something that was a little bit rare than the average guy, especially people my age. And that was this idea that people that are older than you, that are in that last leg of life, maybe the last chapter, last quarter, they have so much value to give. And when they see a young person that's curious, that's interested, that asks deep, meaningful questions, and then shuts up and listens, they will pour into you. They will give you so many gifts, and they want you to win. And that is a really cool connection, because some of my greatest customers that had some of the largest transactions I've ever had over and over and over again, they probably didn't buy from me because they wanted my product or even needed it. They probably bought from me because they wanted me to win. Yeah. And that was just a powerful sort of lesson as I started really winning and figuring out how all this shit actually works. I just wish that when I was younger, I would have slowed down and really sank into this more, because I wasted a lot of good years like fighting so hard and running so hard that I think I missed all the real value along the way.
Well, there's no greater gift than the present, man. That's what I will say. And I think we all have, regrets at the end of the day, but those really shape us and who we are, and when you start to look back, on those experiences and then look back on who you are today, is like, if you're sculpting this amazing leader that's going to bust through fire and stand up for what's right and lead, you would need this dude to go through some pretty gnarly experiences to be that person. So it's hard to sometimes like look back and like, especially in the way I look at it, especially as a coach and a mentor, and especially as a speaker and a leader, is like, I can't remember where I heard this from, but it's a mantra, is like, don't ever waste a catastrophe in your life. Sure. Like a catastrophe is a great mess that you can form a great message from and really lead people in the best of ways. You know what I mean?
That's my keynote, brother. Everything I talk about is how to turn like that pain into rocket fuel to get what you want out of life. And it's funny now at 40 to like look back on this whole thing and to realize a lot of where intrinsically like I had gold, and that I was learning how to almost accidentally leverage it. I didn't have a formula or a framework to understand what I was doing, but now looking back, I can connect all the dots. And the framework is really genius. I wish I would have had someone. There wasn't like mentorship or social media when I was getting in the game, and so I naturally leaned into an energy that starting to guide me somewhere that was really valuable. But I didn't really have any explanation of what was happening. I just kind of had good enough instincts. But looking back, this is something that I love to teach and talk about.
Give us some insight. And I love how methodical and how deep a thinker you are and vulnerable. Give us some insight on you preparing for your presentation for Brand X and kind of the way you approach it. Cause I love what you're going to present about. And at least for myself, I would love to hear about how you approach it and how you put together your keynote.
This would be cool for a lot of people. Sometimes these like simple topics that are like singular, like instead of going so wide with it, just kind of staying right here, they're really helpful for people. Yeah. And it was cool because I picked my mentor, who I think is probably the best speaker in the world. I picked his brain 100 times on this stuff. And now I'm trying to adopt that sort of energy in my own story as well. But public speaking is a thing that I think anybody that has real ambition, that has real talent, I think they should really pursue this with everything they have. They should really put a lot of energy into it.
I honestly, sorry to interrupt. I think everybody should. Everyone that wants to make money, have more influence, have more freedom. Ultimately, what we want in our life is we want more influence. We want more influence to create our schedule. We want more influence of the type of relationships we're in. Like, I believe everything we ultimately want comes from speaking. So like, as you say that, I'm like, hell yeah, preach, bro. Like, but I would say everybody. And if you're listening to this, you're already on that. So, we're already talking to that audience that already, knows and believes that.
I'll take it. Yeah, I can take this like 10 levels deep too, like the sort of the psychology of why stepping in the light has such a profound effect on your life. A lot of people, even if they're temperamentally like a liar, or if they're a manipulator, or if they are running a racket, you start stepping the light with enough conviction and just to go for it, sort of that process of being see-through. What it does in most cases is it strengthens sort of the core of your weakness in a way that like puts a unique amount of pressure on you to really perform differently than you could if you're hiding. I love the light because it exposes you, and you got to be really vulnerable. They might find out the truth about you. And some of the most profound speakers that I've ever been near, when you kind of get into the weeds of their story, a lot of them started just pursuing the light for whatever reason. It could have been like a passion, a calling. It could have been a strategic business move. But at the end of the day, the ones that stay in the fire and get through it become very profound at what they do and are very effective. And the ones that really have impact, at the end of the day, that's the game. These are the people that keep the world going around. Trust me, it's not your politicians. It's not these crackheads who are in office that don't do shit except get rich off taxpayers. Most of these people that are in the institutional world, these are the people that are actually robbing freedom and just killing innocents, literally in real time. They manipulate everything. Everything's a lie. Now, truth is something we question, and biology is something we question. The people that keep the world going around are the people that step in the light and have a voice that has impact. In the collection of all the Travises of the world and all the Eriks, there's enough to go around. Trust me when I tell you. But in a world where our kids are being failed, the education system's crushing, trust me, if you need a mission or a why, just go for it. But what I found is it's so easy to like throw stones at a person or make fun of them or talk shit. And we're so afraid of that it's in our biology to be afraid of a stage. There's a reason they say that public speaking is a greater fear than death.
Yep.
The reason I love this topic so much is because I was so afraid of it myself. It was absolutely my greatest fear. I'd rather literally jump off the fucking bridge with no bungee than public speaking. And when my grandma died and I was in this funk, this bad place, and then I met Ed, and he really pulled this out of me, this thing, and he challenged me to do it. It was really interesting. My first thought was, well, I tried that 10 years ago. It didn't work. I'm not meant for this. And in fact, I did. I spoke on a stage 10 years earlier at the Bellagio in front of a massive real estate community from a dear friend of mine who does a big convention down there. He was one of my greatest customers. And he goes, bro, you should be on stage. You have it. So even back then, he could see it in me. But when I went on stage, I will never forget this feeling. My mouth was so dry, I couldn't open my mouth. My tongue was stuck to the top of my mouth. And when I went to speak, I couldn't talk. I'd never experienced such a shutdown in my body, and my prefrontal cortex shut down. And one of the things that I realized now 10 years later when I started with Ed is the biology of why we're afraid of public speaking is probably, for me, was a more important sort of connection to why I should continue to do it than anything, and it helped me. Knowing that everyone is supposed to be afraid, because in the prehistoric days, the caveman days, if you had the courage to step up in front of the barbarians and present an idea, present yourself as a leader or any kind of moral authority, they could actually kill you. They could stone you to death. Mm-hmm. And so that fear is supposed to keep you safe. Just knowing that that's universal, that Ed feels it too, this guy feels it too, but they do it anyway.
Yeah. And I love that you bring that up, because I talk about that too. I was like, if you go back to the ancient days, like you being accepted by your people was really critical. Like, exactly. Like, are you going to, if they didn't like you, they could kick you out and you could just have to go fend for yourself. So that biology in us is till today. And I don't think we talk enough about this, because when you start to understand the computer and how it's programmed and how it's put together, you can barely tap into that. And I think us is the same way. So I love that you bring this up.
Well, this is good for a lot of people. What I found is when I explain it the way I learned it, and then I also had this speech coach that really opened my mind up to sort of the chemistry of breathing when you're nervous or on stage. The whole key is to keep that heart rate variability in alignment, because if you can do that, you can still have the adrenaline pumping through your body, which is that feeling, those butterflies that make you feel like you're going to throw up. But what you're doing when you keep that rhythmic breathing, that deep rhythmic breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, is you're actually allowing your prefrontal cortex to stay alive. And that's where vocabulary is pulled. You ever seen someone bomb on stage and you could feel it? It's like gut wrenching. I've been there, but I've also watched it in other people. And the second I see someone else starting to bomb, first thing I do as the person in the audience is I look down at my feet. I can't even watch because that's how sick I feel for them.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird thing, but that's that chemistry and that biology of saying you need to stay small. You're not meant to be big. You're not meant to do anything profound. We need you to stay small. And that's so because we don't want you to die in the old days. Well, now it's illogical. No one's stoning you to death. So once you know how to really work through that, now this is universal. Fear is universal. Pain and trauma, all this shit's universal. If you can work through the emotions that stop most people in life and you have a system for it, it allows you to be more effective. And if you can really always feel a feeling you don't like, and in 2 seconds, pull yourself out of that emotional state and into a position where you can still perform, or you can move forward through the fear anyway, that is the whole game of life. That is winning from my perspective, but it's winning these tiny, small moments. In that stage thing, I think it's the ultimate test of figuring out how to step into your greatest fear. And then once you master it, it's a crazy phenomena how the adrenaline that's in your body that's working at first against you, once the energy comes and you realize it's not hurting you, in fact, it's a friendly energy, all of a sudden the adrenaline switches and it's like you're high. It's like a superpower. Now you feel larger than life. It's a really cool experience to sort of work through fear. And that's, again, where all the fulfillment in life comes through, is when you fight through those big ass dragons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with most people, one of their highest feelings is helping another person. Like when you help someone and they have a breakthrough or they learn something. And when you're speaking, it's like that on steroids. You know what I mean? And it's an addiction for me. And I think the best speakers in the world, I would probably say they have that same addiction as well. And I've been speaking for a lot of years now and have got to go through, a lot of different things on stage as well. And in my earlier years, probably the mindset that really helped me the most is what I'm about to share. Usually before we're about to go in front of someone, we're thinking, oh shit, I hope they like me. I hope I don't screw up. I hope I don't say something that's wrong and someone corrects me. I don't know. What were some of your fears earlier on when you started speaking?
Well, for me, honestly, was the first and foremost, the physical feeling was painful to work through for me. The way I could feel in my esophagus and the butterflies in my stomach, it made me feel like I couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
And that feeling of the anxiety that came out of not being able to remember my message was what crippled me, was the anxiety, like if I forget.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized how important it is to be able to figure out how to keep that in mind. So for me, that was that first connection. But obviously, secondly, we are always so fucking afraid of what people think. They're not going to like me. They're going to judge me. All the doubt, all the worry that goes into that. And that's again, these are all universal feelings. So I'll give you one trick that was very helpful early on when I started speaking. I've spoken on 100 stages now. And for years, as I pursued this, I never said the same speech twice, ever. I learned to speak from my heart first before I curated a real speech or even a keynote. I didn't even tell my real story till very recently, my whole story. I kept all the most valuable stuff I kept out. I would just talk about winning. I would give formulas. I learned how to do that at first. But one of the things that
I think everyone kind of starts there, honestly, with that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean,
information and, and
right.
Yeah, and whatnot. And before you carry on your point, I want to finish what I was saying. So for me, one of my coaches said, what are negative things that you think about before you go up? And some of those same things that everyone thinks, well, they like me, well, I screw up. And he said, let's reframe that. What do you want people to think about you? Well, I want them to say, hey, I really want to get to know this guy more. Hey, like I could really see myself being a good friend with this dude. Hey, I would love to go hang out with him. Hey, I really love his teeth. Hey, I really think he's funny. And I started to reframe And this is where I would say this is where branding really takes place, is like, how do you want people to perceive you, and really setting that story in motion before you even get there. And that little exercise all by itself, and really going down there really deep, really changed everything for me early on.
Yeah, no, I mean, really going into the art of branding is crucial, especially if you're going to be effective at this stuff. One of the tricks that I think it paired up with really the understanding of the framing that you're talking about is at least having a little trick that's always in your back pocket that you can leverage, that you know is going to work to sort of break that ice and let that adrenaline sort of relax in your body and start working for you. And for me, I call it addressing the elephant in the room. If I'm heavy on stage and I could feel it, I have no problem just getting this out, addressing. You feel how nervous I am? Like, I don't mind talking about that I'm scared right now. And there's something that really silences an audience when you talk about how scared and small you feel, how weak you feel. Man, I feel see-through right now. I've said that before. Second I do that, it's almost like the audience leans in.
Yeah.
And they can feel my heart. Sometimes I've said that too. I say, you feel my heart? I feel like it's beating through my chest right now. Once you talk like that, it just silences. And what people are doing is all of a sudden they get very interested because you're now resonating, because most likely most of that audience feels the same fucking way. Yeah. Imagine what you'd feel like right there. And that doesn't quickly resonate. But
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
At the end of the day, the last point I'll pair up with all this is that what's been helpful for me is to remove myself. I just want to make sure that I'm serving one person in that audience. And the easiest way for a lot of people to do that is just to talk to a younger version of me that needed to hear this message. And the more I've settled on that, it has really helped me deliver like in a powerful way. And that might really affect someone that out there too that has a lot of potential, that's scared, is like, just make it about one person in that audience, even if you affect one life in that room. And it takes a lot of the pressure off the table in a way that you have to come out so perfect, or, I bombed so many times, you know what I mean? So it's all part of the scar tissue process. But even when I bombed, people still came up to me in tears saying that I changed their life. It's a really cool thing.
I would say nothing in speaking is as hard as comedy, because comedy, they're expecting you to make them laugh.
That's good. Yeah.
Inspirational speaking, everyone's like, yeah, you did good. You said stuff like no one has as high as an expectation as comedians do. So years ago, I actually did. I went to a stand-up night and did a 3-minute segment, and dude, I was scared. I mean, there was only like 30 people in the audience, but I was more scared.
Any jokes you told?
I can't remember exactly what the jokes were as far as everything goes. Looking back, I think I should have approached it more strategically, and I should have, I got off my brand, which is probably why I was so nervous. I was trying to make them laugh rather than speaking from my humor and the way I see things from my vision, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so, Dan Clark, who you're going to meet, he always has the audience rolling. And I can't remember who told me this last year or before. They're like, you don't need to tell jokes. You need to bring out your humor, because everyone has a different way of seeing things in the world that's funny to them. And so I've yeah, that's right. I probably just need to own mine. And when I'm in the state and in the flow of myself, and I feel comfortable on stage, that's when I get the laughs. And I've noticed, I work with a lot of people over the years speaking, and I've seen the same presentation over and over. And then, off the stage, I was like, yeah, dude, your joke landed. Everyone was cracking up. And then they say the same joke and it didn't crack and no one laughed. And he's like, why is that? And what I've really noticed over the years, the energy coming into the joke is everything. You can't just all of a sudden land a joke. You have to move and flow into the joke, is what I've noticed. I'm no comedian by any means, but that's kind of what I've noticed over the years, is the way you approach and come into it, not necessarily the joke itself, which kind of comes back to storytelling. It's not the story, it's how you share the story.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's an art form, really. You're right. That if I say the actual same exact lines, no one laughs. It may not be perceived as a joke. But this person says it, and the whole room erupts. And it's the art form of how that delivery sort of lands. And that is fun. If you study comedians, it's a really great way to really approach.
Absolutely.
If you want to master it, study the art of your favorite comedians, and you can learn a lot. And you really even study speakers that you like. You know, if you watch Ed, you know, because he's a good example for someone like me because I'm so close to him. But sort of the highs and the lows, you can feel when he takes you low, when his voice softens, the body language, how he works the stage, sort of the energy of the highs and the lows. It's that transition that really starts to build, and he explodes and he pulls you back. And you can actually take someone through a 2-hour journey. If you're really going to do a really long keynote, I watched him speak for almost 2 hours before. And he's one of those guys that can pull it off where it feels like 20 minutes. And it's because he takes you through the roller coaster of the whole thing, and time starts to really shrink when there's a very effective communicator on stage. Tony Robbins is really good at it as well. He's a master at it. But it is cool to watch people doing that are at the best of what they do, but not through the lens of just being entertained or through learning, but really looking at the craft of their art and then sort of looking through that eye. It's a different eye to watch.
Yeah.
You'll start noticing things, and it doesn't mean like you need to be something that you're not, but so often your message and your heart, sort of, if you could slow it down a little, maybe you speed it up, maybe you talk with a different tone, like just those subtle little differences, they change the frequency in the room, and it could be the same words, but it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah. Your tone functionality is huge. Yeah. Whispering, people want to hear a secret. When you whisper, they lean in. Right. Yeah. So yeah, great, man. Love all the stuff. We can conversate for probably hours on all this stuff. And as the listeners, I think this is some good stuff. What do you think's the greatest shift that you had in your journey in being a speaker and a storyteller that you would probably go back to your younger self and say, hey, you need to pay attention to this right here?
Yeah. Listen, man, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, and man, I should have been doing this years and years earlier. I hid from a long time, man. And my validation to myself, the boxes I was checking that was making me feel like I was a winner. I'll tell you the truth, man. For so many years, when I made a decision that I was going to become somebody, I always had a fire since I was a child burning in me. I just happened to go the wrong direction after OxyContin really stole from my life as a teenager. But when I finally came back, and it didn't kill me, like the darkness didn't kill me. It could have, it didn't though. And I didn't get lost in it. I came back and I had a chance. What I realized is all these years of momentum, of actions, of literally a man of action constantly, and being the hardest worker in every room. I'm obsessive and I fight and I have tunnel vision, and I was starting to really leverage not resources, not money, not even talent, but I was sort of leveraging a fire into doing simple things right. And where it led me was to a lot of opportunity that I would learn to capitalize on. I would take advantage of. I was a big risk taker, and it really served me well. It could have broke me in many cases, but never did actually. And the point is when I look back at 35, this was a pivotal moment in my life, and I had everything. I had a dream life. My regular life was someone's like vacation. You know what I mean? That was my 24/7 reality. Mm-hmm. I built a dream life on one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. I lived in Laguna Beach in the winter, Coeur d'Alene on the lake in the summer. Like I created a lifestyle 35 that's fucking rare. And how did I do it? What was I doing along the way? That's what people thought they wanted to know about me, right? And that's the value that I thought I offered the world. I was a winner. Look at all the shit I have. Look at all the Rolexes and the Patek's, and you see that boat? Yeah, that's 300 grand. Here's a private jet. Like I could validate that I'm important and that I'm somebody, because I've done shit that's rare. Most people can't live a life like that. It's rare. That's why people want things that are expensive, because they know you can't afford it. So I'm better than you. I'm rarer than you. But when I look back, brother, and I'm having these deep reflections about just life and how death crept in to really sort of shake me in a really powerful way. I look back and I realize I was never running towards anything my entire fucking life. When I lost the dream of baseball and I died, my soul had left my body. I almost died. My soul started selling drugs. Worst environment a human could go through, doing blow on the top of toilet seats at AM, PM in the bathroom at 4 a.m. Like, just how did I get so low? And then all of a sudden I'm winning so high. That period of time between my rock bottom, sort of the worst pain a human can go through, all that trauma, and me where I thought I was at my best, all that was me running from something.
And it worked because I was covering a lot of ground. I was taking risk. I was doing shit. I was a man of action. And that was a really important pivotal moment for me to reflect back on. And I'm lucky I had this opportunity because you could get all the way to the Michael Jordan levels, leveraging what I was leveraging. But there's one thing that was missing. I had not found purpose. And I didn't know it for the longest time. I had no concept that I had no peace. I wasn't at peace. I don't have peace in my fucking soul. And I would have never defined peace as part of what winning was. Mm-hmm. That was not my definition of winning. Fuck that. I win. And then when I realized that I actually have nothing, even though I have everything, it was such a really profound moment. And now sort of the value I offer the world has nothing to do with the things I used to prize, and has everything to do with this type of communication, trying to figure out how to get someone to purpose faster. But I do think you have to learn how to become a person that if they say they're going to do something, does it. There's all these fundamentals that should come in first, but it led me to purpose. And that is one of the sort of the gifts of looking back on my journey is I don't think a lot of people ever get to purpose. I don't think a lot of people ever get to impact. I don't think a lot of people ever get anywhere near their greatest potential. And so one thing I like to just teach, and I'll end on this because I know I'm long. This is a big topic.
I like it. Keep going. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I think everybody in the world has pain and has trauma. I think it's such a universal thing. We all have these emotional experiences, right? And somehow I got lucky. I learned to leverage that so that it would get me into a place of action towards the dreams, towards the freedom that we all desire. But it was really cool to sort of get to a place where you had it all and to realize you still weren't free. There's layers to this. There's levels to winning. You have to really define what all this means. But the thing that I'm now is my greatest gift to give people is no matter where you're at, where you've been, what you've been through, there is so much gold inside you right now, just the way you are. If you can reframe the problems that stall most people in life, if you can reassess how the emotions that hold you back can actually be the things that catapult you for greatest direction. And if you could really understand that winning is about two decisions that are constantly being played out in your brain. It's just a voice between this side of your brain and this side. It's a good and evil. It's the light and the darkness. And that is the whole thing comes down to this moment. Am I going to lie or am I going to tell the truth? Am I going to cheat and cut a corner? Or am I going to do it the right fucking way? Am I going to only do it when there's someone watching and not do it when no one else is watching? These are little decisions that happen in our brain constantly. If you could start leveraging just the same shit that I did to at least make better decisions here, you'll start getting momentum. But if you could have a mentor in your life that can explain sort of the process of building momentum around purpose, around faith, around God, around some greater connection to what life is really about. And I'm convinced that most people, they never really find that person that's going to help elevate to that next level. And they actually never find the person that can help them get to a place of actual momentum. And this is where this profound thought of when you start looking around you, if the people around you are not pulling you up, then you have a problem. And that was the first thing that changed in my life when I made a decision. Is the only people around me when I made a decision to get into business were my customers. And my customers became the greatest assets I had for over a decade. That's all I hung out with older people. My next door neighbor used to be the vice president of Motorola. Spent hours with that guy. He just died last year. His name was Tom Beaver, gazillionaire, had everything in the world. All he wanted to do was throw balls to his dogs down on his dock. And then I'd paddle over and we just talk for hours. But that's who I became sort of obsessed with, is figuring out how to qualify the buyer, qualify the person in the room, realize they have so many gifts to give, attaching myself to them, adding value, expecting nothing in return. And that is what slowly showed me how to get all the things that I wanted, only to find out that I was still missing everything. And that was what I was missing, was peace, was God, was real happiness. But this is that whole evolution, I think, from how you get out of hell and how you get to the rarest place in the world. It's a cool story.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Love the passion. Love it, dude. And I'm really glad that Ray connected us, man.
I know. Ray's a good dude.
Yeah. Yeah. He's an intense dude, as you would have to be a Navy SEAL, right? Yeah. Love everything that you're talking about. Super glad to have you a part of Brand X, as well. How do people follow you?
Instagram's easy. It's kind of where my heart and soul, all the content of my world sort of flows through. That is my main page. It's Erik, E-R-I-K, Rock, LOL. It all started as a joke, and so now it's real. But Erik Rock, LOL.
Cool, man. Well, really appreciate you being here. Brand X, September 6th and 7th. Erik's going to be rocking the stage. And yeah, dude, I can't wait to hear your presentation. And just, I love the passion, love the purpose. I always tell people, I was like, I don't know what it is. I think baseball guys just get each other, man. I don't know. I don't know if I haven't met an Erik that I haven't liked. And I don't think I've not gotten along with many baseball guys. So we got 2 in 1 right here. So really appreciate you, man. And yeah, dude, I could tell the trajectory of where you're going with your brand. And I know you already know this, but I have to say this to you. And I need the people on the air to listen. Like, you're going to be big one day, man. You're got a fire in your belly and passion in your heart. And being able to be so vulnerable and open is such a gift. And I think the more we are open and more vulnerable, it's scary. But when we're open, we allow ourselves to connect with so many more people.
So true.
And last month, I started doing these brotherhood networking events in my house, and people were like, why would you do it at your house? I was like, dude, it's family, bro. If we're gonna do brotherhood, let's come into my house, man. I didn't get this big house just for me. I got this house to bring people in, but you know, I shared really vulnerable story and everything, and just really opened up, and the level of connection was just off the wall. And it was just really cool. And I love how you do that. And I think that's a superpower going in the next world. And this is where, in my opinion, branding needs to begin. We need to begin with these conversations that we're holding here. So I love everything that you're about, man. And just wanted to also share that with you.
I appreciate you, man. Crazy to know that I lied most of my life. I was so afraid of my truth that I hid it from everybody.
Yeah, I think there's always a greater truth. And that's why I tell people, you know, the search for truth, we could always find a greater truth, a more way of pursuing it. So Sam Knickerbocker, I want to share this real quick before we wrap up. He's going to be speaking at the event. I love how analytical he is. I'll have to introduce him to it. But he said, how many times do you need to lie to become a liar?
One.
And you know, right? Hey, baby, I love the dinner. You didn't really love the dinner, right? And he said the reason why I share that question is to really get you to think, you know, where at in your life could you be more honest, you know, with yourself in all aspects, right? And as you get more honest with yourself, you're going to have a greater life. You're going to have more of that peace. And here's what I wanted to say. I knew there was something really profound that I wanted to say, but as you were talking and I forgot. I feel like God is so funny, and I feel like we need to invite God more into our conversations. And what's really funny, at least for my relationship with God, is he always finds a way to get back in the picture, man. He always finds a way to come more relevant in your life. He always finds a way to, he's just so funny, man. He just always finds a way. So I just wanted to just, like, as you talk about that, I was like, isn't it funny just how he just finds a way to get back into the conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a deeper connection with God now through action and through serving, through helping other people, and than I ever had when it was sort of preached onto me. Mm-hmm. And God inside the four walls has nothing compared to the God outside when you're out there doing the actions that are actually fighting against evil. So instead of talking about it or praying about it, putting it into action that can go out instead of just yelling at the TV, well, what are you going to do about it? Go do something. Mm-hmm. And that was something, especially during COVID, I recognized just another powerful little thing to slip in there is like, if you're upset about the economy, if you're upset about the government, listen, I am too. But you know what the difference between me now is and me 5 years ago is now I feel like my life matters because I'm doing something. It's mm-hmm. not about me anymore. It's now about other people and children and innocence in general. That should be so protected. It should be literally an obligation, I think, to every man that's out there. Every real man should step up and start fighting for innocence because they are going after children in a way that is so blatant. It is so seeable The trajectory is so bad, good or, and again, social media, good or bad, what you're seeing happen to children right now through TikTok, they're saying like now 7 to 8 hours the average teenager spends on TikTok in America. And these messages is getting children, and especially young teenage girls, to hate themselves. The reason I keep going to these types of places is because what's the fucking point of all this if we're not going to wake somebody up to step up to the plate? It is time. If you're a dad out there that's lazy and Netflix in and you're half-assed and you're out of shape, listen, your house is not in order. Right now is the time to get your house in order. Now's the time. If there's ever been a time in our history, now is the time. There are so many scary things happening, and you being pissed off and eating ice cream and not really being a person that is out there doing shit. Whatever your dragons are, your demons, we all have them. No one's perfect. But it's that reflection of the mirror, being honest with myself. Who the fuck am I? Am I happy with my circumstances? If you're fucking not, like, you've got to take this shit seriously, and you got to put a lot of meaning and reason behind every little action you do. And if the kids aren't enough reason, then I don't know what is. Because if you put a powerful story behind even the smallest actions, it puts so much meaning behind it. It's more likely that it's going to turn into something. The fruition of it will come alive. But a lot of people, I don't think, are putting a strong attachment to why they do what they do. The reason I go on stages is because I'm convinced that I'm helping children. Somehow I think my voice of getting you to level the fuck up is good for the kids that now you are around. I just feel like all of us collectively together, getting our houses in order and stepping up to the plate is just good for society. And at the end of the day, those are the actions that connected me to my God. It wasn't someone telling me that I needed to. It was the actions. And now I go to bed in a unique way, man, like that if I died tomorrow, I'm okay. Like the fear of death is so much less now because I do feel like I'm living in my highest and best use. I'm scared all the time. I'm never comfortable. This isn't comfortable. Like this is hard for me, man. It always has been. I tell the world I had to turn a camera around and talk to it every day. This isn't ego. This is so hard for me. And it took me years to be able to do that with one take. Used to do like 30 takes because I fucked up. Yeah. And I hated it. And it's like, this is that person that I had to build. I wasn't born this way. And there's someone out there that's going to hear this and they're like, fuck, man, I resonate with Erik. I'm not born this way either, but I want to be this though. Your authentic self is not who you're meant to be. No offense. Your authentic self is the man you wish to be. And that's the guy you got to work for every day. And when you're consistent enough, one day that will be your authentic self, but you got to earn it. Because the most authentic version of you that kicks ass in life and gets everything they want, that's the definition of winning. Do you get what you want out of life or not? That's the authentic version of you that you want to die with. That's how you want to meet God in your highest and best use. You did exactly what you were supposed to do with your life. And most people, there's actually studies on this, 98% of people die without achieving their dreams. That's a Wealth Research Group study, and it's heartbreaking. How is that possible? And again, hopefully our message right now, Travis, just resonates with somebody.
Oh, it will, man. It will for sure. And if you guys can do me a favor, please share this podcast, copy the link, text it over to someone. That's all I ask for. Give me a review. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review. Just give me a review. I'd really appreciate that. Tell us what you're liking about the podcast. And dude, I'll see you in like 28 days from now, man.
Get it, dog. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Let it rock. Erik Rock, man. I'm going to make up his own slogan for him. Thanks for joining, guys. As I was saying, okay, go share that. Be inspired in what you're doing. Be next gen. As always, the world needs you. Go get out your story.
Hey, you know you have a story to share with the world, which means you need to get on more life stages. We have a jam-packed schedule in 2024 full of events, including our biggest event year to date, Brand X. Go to benextgen.com/speak. Again, benextgen.com/speak. Or you could just click the link in the description. Fill out an application. Our team will reach out to you and show you how our speaker partnership works. Get on a stage, get video, blow up your brand, blow up your business. Let's go.